Discover 13 spine-chilling true tales of the cursed rain, unexplained horrors revealed in the dark. Emma had always loved her quiet life in Maplewood, the sweet laughter of children bouncing off white picket fences, the warm sunshine painting her mornings with promise. But today, the ordinary turned sinister. Dark clouds loomed overhead, casting eerie shadows that danced across her yard. As the first drop splattered against the pavement, she couldn't shake the feeling that something wicked was coursing through the air, like static before a storm. The whispers about the rain cursed, they said, seemed like ridiculous folklore. But those moments when the laughter faded and an unsettling chill wrapped around her like a fog, those felt real. As evening approached, the air grew thick with dread. Lucy and Jake clung to her side, their innocent eyes wide with fear. Their friends had retreated into their homes, laughter replaced by an echoing silence that sent shivers down Emma's spine. She shook her head, dismissing the dark thoughts crowding her mind. Kids were scared of storms, it was normal. Yet, her instincts screamed that this was anything but normal. Suddenly, strange rattles resonated from the windows. Emma's heart pounded, a frenetic drum echoing in her chest. Shadows twisted against the walls, warped forms slinking just beyond the glass. She breathed in sharply, her fingers trembling as she reached for her phone, but the line to the authorities was met with laughter. "Just a little rain, ma'am," they chuckled, their dismissive tones stinging her ears. Desperation clawed at her, the walls of her familiar home now feeling too constrictive. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue." With a suffocating breath, Emma decided action was her only defense. She grabbed her children's hands, leading them toward the old school down the street. It loomed ahead, a dark silhouette against the relentless downpour. Anxiety rippled through her. Behind every corner, she felt something watching, some lure nestled into the very bricks of the building, waiting to ensnare her family in its web of despair. Emma's instincts buzzed, warning her of a lurking presence. As they reached the entrance, the door creaked open as if inviting them into the belly of the beast. The air was stale, heavy with a scent of mildew and despair. The rain drummed softly in the background, like fingers drumming on a table, matching the panicked rhythm of her heart. Darkness enveloped them as they stepped inside, and they could hear whispers echoing among ghostly desks and broken windows, stories that shouldn't see the light of day. Emma fumbled through the eerie silence, her resolve shaking as she led Lucy and Jake deeper into the shadows. They ventured down a hall that felt alive, breathing history laced with tragedy. Her skin prickled, and she quickly turned her gaze to a door at the end of the corridor. It was slightly ajar, an unsettling invitation. A chill crept through her bones as she approached. Peering inside, she felt the weight of unspoken truths pressing down on her. Emma realized this was where secrets buried in despair had slithered back to life. The rain was not just weather, it was a harbinger of uncovering horrors that spanned generations. Something waited, something she might not be able to shield her children from. Her breath hitched as darkness shifted to reveal what Maplewood had kept hidden. Emma's heart raced, the fight to protect her children had only just begun. Would she unravel the mystery before it claimed them all? Emma felt her heart hammering in her chest as she hesitated at the threshold of the room. Shadows clung to the corners like secrets that wouldn't die, waiting, hungry. She pushed the door open a little more, her breath shallow. Inside, the atmosphere was weighted with a heaviness that felt almost sentient. The dim light from a single broken window cast a lattice of dark lines across dusty desks. Stacks of old papers littered the floor, the remnants of long-forgotten lessons and lives. Emma stepped inside, gripping Lucy and Jake's hands tightly, their small bodies trembling beside her. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of despair mingling with the steady rhythm of the rain outside, a haunting melody that promised only fear. "Mom, I don't like it here," Lucy whispered, her voice barely above a tremor. Emma knelt down to her level, forcing a smile that shivered at the edges. "We just need to find out what is wrong. Stay close, okay?" But as she spoke, unease prickled her skin, a raw instinct telling her they were not alone. A sound broke through the whispers, a soft thud, followed by dragging footsteps from the room's depths. Emma's palms grew clammy, she felt her children's grip tighten in response. The noise grew closer, deliberate and slow, as if whatever was making it enjoyed their fear. "Emma," Jake whimpered, his large eyes searching hers. "Can we go back?" A part of her wanted to run, to flee from this nightmare. Yet another part twisted with curiosity. Something terrible lay cloaked in shadows, something breathing just beyond their view. Summoning her courage, she led them deeper into the murky heart of the room. As they stepped onto the old wooden floorboards, she noticed designs etched into the surface, patterns spiraling into horrifying shapes, almost like grasping hands. Emma's heart seized, she felt the air grow colder, the atmosphere thickening like fog, as if the very ground beneath them held tales of suffering. Suddenly, the whispers surged. "Leave while you can." The voice, muffled and far away, echoed around them, chilling Emma to the bone. She stumbled back, but Lucy and Jake clung tighter, terror lacing their young faces. Confusion and fear battled in her chest. "What do you want?" she shouted into the darkness. A low chuckle reverberated in response, sending cold shivers down her spine. Just then, a figure emerged from the shadows, its form volatile and indistinct. It flickered like a flame before rearing itself to its full and horrific height. Emma steadied herself, but her body screamed to shrink away. The kids gasped, their eyes wide in dread, and then, as if in answer to her desperate fear, she caught sight of it, a drop of crimson falling from the ethereal figure, splattering onto the floor like a single sanguine tear. "What is happening?" Emma's voice trembled, her mind racing. The rain continued pouring outside, but in that moment, she realized the truth: the rain had never been just rain. It was a connection to something darker, something alive. Suddenly, the dark figure lunged forward, a silent scream escaping its lips, its shadow extending to encircle them. Emma's breath quickened as panic gripped her. She needed a way out, needed to save her children. Her heart raced as she turned back toward the door, the sound of rushing rain mingling with the throbbing dread in her chest. With a final glance, she realized this wasn't just a forgotten school. It was a gateway, a passage into a terror that would not rest until it claimed them all. "Run!" Emma shouted, pulling her children with her, fear almost blinding her as they plunged into the corridor. The shadows behind them twisted, eager to follow, but the door slammed shut with a thunderous clap, and as Emma rattled the handle, the room behind them filled with laughter, sinister and echoing, a promise that they hadn't escaped yet what lurked in the darkness, and could it reach out and trap them forever? The answer was coming, and time was running out. Panic surged through Emma as she yanked at the door, the heavy wood refusing to budge. "Jake! Lucy! Stay close!" she ordered, forcing herself to focus, to keep her children beside her. Despair washed over the hallway as shadows danced on every surface. The laughter echoed, a twisted mockery that seeped into her bones. They were trapped. There was nowhere to go but into the darkness beyond, where the malevolent whispers grew sharper and thicker, wrapping around her like a suffocating blanket. "Mom!" Lucy whimpered, her voice cracking. "I want to go home." Flash images flooded Emma's mind, warmth, safety, and laughter. She couldn't let this place steal those memories from her children. "We'll find a way out. I promise," she managed to say, though desperation tightened her throat. The corridor stretched endlessly before them, each footstep heavy as they ventured deeper into the murky gloom. The air felt stale, as if the walls held their breath. Just then, a moan rose from behind them, low and mournful. It vibrated through the wooden beams like a warning bell. "Keep moving," Emma urged, each step feeling like wading through a pool of dread. The darkness shifted, coiling at her ankles. They pressed forward, the whispers now a frenzied murmur, rising and falling like the tide. "Let us in." She shook her head, refusing to listen. "No, no!" she shouted defiantly. But even as she spoke, doubt gnawed at her, a relentless voice whispering in the back of her mind, what if they weren't alone? Suddenly, a door creaked open to their right, a door that hadn't been there a moment before. It beckoned, a sliver of light outlining its edges. Emma's heart pounded. "Should we check it out?" Jake asked, his voice shaky. "It could be a way out," Emma replied, not ready to give in to fear despite the nagging doubt. She pushed the door wide, revealing a dusty classroom filled with decaying artifacts, old desks, chairs, and a chalkboard caked with grime. A broken globe sat on a shelf, its contents faded, but something about it drew her in. A chill crept along her spine. "Mom," Lucy whispered, glancing over her shoulder. The shadows seemed to crawl closer, reaching for them with invisible fingers. "Let us hurry," Emma whispered, her voice trembling. They stepped inside, watching the door swing slowly shut behind them with an ominous creak. Just as it clicked into place, the classroom plunged into a stifling silence. A sudden sound, a hesitant scrape from across the room, made Emma's heart jump. She turned toward it, pushing her children protectively behind her. A figure emerged, not from the shadows, but from the back corner, shrouded in an inky blackness that seemed to pulse and breathe. "Come closer," it hissed, the words slithering through the air like a serpent. The chill intensified, freezing Emma's limbs as dread settled in her stomach like a stone. "No! Stay back!" she cried, her voice cracking as she backed toward the door. She shook her head furiously, denying the urge to move toward the figure. Glimpsing its outline, she felt the air grow thick, impossibly thick, like standing in a fog. The creature leaned forward, its features melting into the dark, becoming something more than human but something less than alive. "You can't run," it whispered, a promise and a threat wrapped in the same breath. "You're here forever now." Emma's pulse raced as she clutched her children closer, their tiny hearts beating like war drums against her side. "We have to leave." But the classroom echoed with chilling laughter again, the door blocked from behind as the figure loomed closer, shifting as if the very shadows were alive. In that moment, Emma realized the full horror of their situation. Escaping was never a choice. And just then, the whispers crescendoed again, drowning out her thoughts. Join us forever." Could they survive the darkness looming over them? Or would they become just another part of the dreaded memory of this place? Time was slipping away, and the true terror had only just begun. The figure surged forward, shadows writhing and snapping around it like angry serpents. Emma's heart thundered as sheer panic gripped her. "Back! Stay back!" she shouted, but her voice was almost drowned out by the cacophony of mocking laughter. Trying to shield her children, she stumbled blindly toward the door, but her hand met only splintered wood. She forced her body against it, desperation fueling her strength, but it held firm as if the very building itself had become a prisoner of the darkness surrounding them. "Mom! What is happening?" Jake cried, his eyes wide with terror. Emma turned to see his face pale, an expression she never wanted to see on her son. Lucy was pressed into her side, trembling, silent tears glistening on her cheeks. "Listen to me. We need to find a way to fight this," Emma shouted, though her own body felt sluggish, weighed down by despair. The laughter morphed into a grotesque chorus, echoing around them, taunting her resolve. Join us forever." The words slithered through the air, invading her mind, spiraling her thoughts into dark depths. Emma clenched her jaw, shaking her head as if to physically shrug off the sound. "No!" she yelled, breathing heavy, pulling her children closer, determination rising in her chest like a flame. "Mom!" Lucy's voice broke through, stark and raw. "What do we do?" Out of the corner of her eye, Emma spied the window in the back of the classroom, jagged glass catching their meager light. That! It felt like a desperate grasp of hope. "We can escape through there." The figure hesitated, as if struggling against some invisible barrier. Mustering all her strength, Emma took her children's hands. "Follow me. Move." They rushed toward the window, Emma's heart racing, anchored by the warmth of her children's tiny fingers. With one violent shove, she pushed Lucy ahead. "Jump! Jacob, you next!" The window felt dangerously close, the drops below steep and dark, but fear of the creature outweighed the dread of the fall. Jake stumbled and then froze, eyes wide with disbelief. "What if it catches us? Then we make it our fight." The words felt fierce and bold, a shield against the sinister presence that lingered. "We have to." With a swift push, she hoisted him up just as the figure let out a guttural growl. The air grew colder, a cry of rage echoing in the confined space. "You can't leave!" it hissed, voice dripping with malice. Emma scrambled up, panic coursing through her veins as she caught a glimpse of the shadow uncoiling, inching closer. "Hurry! We don't have time." Jake's small body tumbled out the window, landing with a thud on the ground below. "I'm okay," he shouted, the relief in his voice a small beacon amid the dread. "Lucy, now." The space behind her began to thrum, the whispers transforming into unintelligible screams. Emma grasped her daughter, feeling her shaking build to a crescendo. "Mom! I don't want to." Lucy sobbed, eyes wide and frantic. The shadows lunged. Every instinct screamed at Emma to shove her daughter through the window, but a fleeting thought struck. What if she succeeded, but her daughter was lost to the darkness forever? "You'll be okay, Lucy," she comforted, though her own voice felt fragile. "You have to trust me." She squeezed her eyes shut, her body vibrating with urgency and fear. The fabric of the nightmares surrounding them whispered sweet promises of surrender, alluring but lethal. With the last ounce of strength, she lifted Lucy and tossed her through the window just as the figure screamed its rage. Emma heard the glass shatter, felt the rush of air behind her as she turned back to face the horror. The creature lunged, shadows clawing closer. "Get out! Please!" Emma's heart split as she screamed, just as she hurled herself through. The ground below was hard, and she hit it like a stone dropped into water. Pain shot through her limbs, but she pushed herself up, searching frantically for her children. They were there, their terrified faces staring back at her, wide in disbelief, but they needed to move now. Behind her, the classroom screamed in fury, shadows swirling violently as they struggled against the window frame. "Run!" Emma shouted, pulling her children to their feet. They needed to get away from the presence that wanted to claim them, wanted to turn them into part of the horror they had just escaped, but as they sprinted toward the distant flicker of streetlights, an unsettling thought churned in Emma's mind: had they truly escaped? The darkness behind them seemed to fester, refusing to release its hold. She glanced back, breath quickening. And in that dim light, she thought she saw them taking shape, a movement that made her stomach churn with renewed fear. What if the worst wasn't over? She turned back, heart racing, but it was only the beginning of their flight from horror. Would they ever truly be free? Or had they merely jumped from one nightmare to another? The pavement beneath their feet thudded rhythmically, a harsh reminder of the urgency driving them forward. Emma's lungs burned, the icy night air clawing at her throat as they raced into the shadows of the street. Panic thrummed in her chest, but she stole quick glances at Jake and Lucy, both alive, both with her. But how long would that last? "Keep moving," she urged, fear seeped into her tone as she gripped their hands tighter. They were a unit, a triad of survival, but the darkness wasn't far behind them. Every footfall against the concrete echoed, amplified by the absence of any other sound. Were they alone? Had they truly escaped? "Mom, what if it finds us?" Jake's voice trembled, trembling as much as the ground beneath them felt as if it were shaking with the creature's fury. "I don't know," she admitted, her heart racing further as the shadows stretched toward them, writhing and curling like living things. Surely, it wouldn't stop hunting them. The memory of the figure's menacing hiss clawed at the edges of her mind. "But we can't stop. We can't let it." A glimmer of hope sparked in the distance, light spilling into the street from the open door of a diner. Emma felt the pull of safety, optimism momentarily banishing the fight-or-flight instinct tormenting her. In there. She pointed, her voice gaining strength. The three of them darted towards the diner, bursting through the door just as a freezing gust swept by them, slamming it shut behind. Inside, fluorescent lights flickered overhead, an unnerving hum buzzing in the still air. The clatter of dishes and the sizzle of greasy food were uncomfortably normal, but Emma felt their world collapsing into absurdity before her eyes. The patrons sat obliviously at their tables, laughter and chatter swirling around them as if nothing had just happened. "Mom," the window's Lucy's soft voice broke through Emma's daze. The girl was right. The diner's windows looked like solid barriers, yet deep down, Emma knew the creature could slip through shadows, that it didn't need doors. "I know," she whispered, driving her panic down into a simmer. They needed a plan, something, anything to fortify their shaky reality. She scanned the diner, looking for an exit or even a weapon. As if sensing her thoughts, a figure from the back, an elderly man with hollowed eyes and a grizzled beard, looked up. His gaze pierced through the noise, locking onto Emma's as if he could see the darkness chasing them. "You're not safe here," he rasped, voice low yet urgent. "What do you mean?" Emma demanded, dread pooling in her gut. She drew her children closer, ready for another fight. "The shadows, they're everywhere. This place ain't what it seems." He gestured toward the windows, where distorted reflections of things unseen flickered. "They find you, and they feast." Emma's breath hitched. Her heart thudded again. "What do you know about them?" "The darkness was here before you," he murmured. "And it never leaves, it just finds a new way to reach you." She swallowed hard, glancing at Jake and Lucy, who looked confused and frightened. Every instinct screamed at her to flee. They had survived so far, hadn't they? But now, with the man's words echoing in her mind, dread gnawed at her. "What do we do?" Jake finally asked. He looked desperately at Emma, a boy caught in a nightmare he couldn't understand. The old man leaned closer, his voice barely a whisper. "You have to confront it. But choices must be made, and not all will survive." A chill crept down her spine. What choice? How could she put her children at risk again? The thought stung deep within. Before Emma could reply, the air shifted. Outside, shadows twisted darker, their outlines moving with new purpose. A low growl reverberated through the diner, demanding attention. The whispers were back. Join us forever." Emma's pulse quickened. They had to move. But the weight of the man's words pressed down on her. Could she push her kids to face that horror again? How could she make a choice that would either save them or doom them? In that moment, the flickering lights buzzed and went out, cloaking them in an unsettling darkness. Emma's breath hitched. What if that decision sealed their fate? The shadows outside surged toward the glass once more, a hungry tide of chaos. What choice would she make, and could they survive it? The darkness enveloped them, a heavy shroud that dampened sound and light alike. Emma felt the weight of it pressing down on her, a tangible dread that sought to suffocate her resolve. She could barely make out the forms of her children, their faces washed in pale light from emergency lanterns flickering on the walls. The air was thick with the scent of fried food, but it couldn't mask the impending fear. "Mom," Lucy whimpered, her fingers clutching Emma's shirt. "Stay close," Emma ordered softly, though tremors laced her voice. She scanned the diner, where the ambient noise had fallen silent, save for the creeping whispers that slithered around the edges of her mind. Shadows flickered and danced, as if celebrating their disorientation. Had everyone else in the diner noticed? Or were they hopelessly ignorant, trapped in their own normalcy? The old man's warning echoed relentlessly, a mantra of dread. They find you, and they feast. "Why is it getting darker?" Jake asked, eyes wide with fear. He was looking at the windows, where very faintly, outlines of shadows conspired. For a moment, Emma wished she could offer reassurance, she wished she could believe it herself. But they were all acutely aware of the danger growing beyond the glass. "We need to confront it," she whispered, her own heart pounding with the notion. What did that even mean? What weapon could they use against something that thrived in shadows? Suddenly, the diner's clattering resumed, but this time it felt wrong. A twisting surprise greeted her, laughter echoed with an edge, a mocking lilt, as if the patrons were complicit in an unspeakable game. Emma's stomach knotted. She stepped forward, pulling Lucy along, trying to hold back the tremors shaking her body. "Hey!" she called out, voice trembling. "Do any of you?" But the laughter abruptly ceased, heads turning in stiff, synchronized movement toward her. Their faces wore the same hollow, vacant expressions as the old man. Fear rippled through her, hardening into sheer panic. "Join us," one patron murmured, voice lilting as though it belonged to a different creature entirely. "Join us forever." The edges of the room swam with shadows, thick like smoke, curling around tables, snatching at her ankles. Emma turned sharply to check on Jake, his expression a mirror of her own horror, mouth open in a silent scream. A crash erupted from the back of the diner, slicing the tension like a knife. A chair toppled over, revealing a darkened figure hunched behind it. A glimpse was all she needed, a contorted body, something twisted and wrong in its movements. No, not just a figure. Something far more sinister. "Get to the back," Emma ordered, her throat tight. She pulled her children along, dashing toward the restroom at the far end of the diner. It felt like running towards certain death. But where else could they go? As they pushed through the door, Emma locked it behind them, their small sanctuary lit only by a flickering fluorescent bulb that hummed ominously. Breathing heavily, she listened closely, counting heartbeats and muffled whispers. "Mom, what is happening?" Jake whispered, fear saturating every syllable. The sound of shuffling outside sent a chill skittering down Emma's spine. She pressed her ear against the door, straining to hear. The whispers pooled outside, saturating the air with dread. They weren't gone. They were waiting. Just then, the door rattled, a tiny whimper of wood that turned her insides to ice. "Let us in," came the voice again, almost a hiss. The shadows pressed closer, framing the door with twisted shapes. Emma's mind raced. Whatever had taken hold outside, it wanted them. But why? What did it mean to confront the darkness? Would she willingly sacrifice everything for a slim chance of survival? Emma's heart raced with the realization, they had to face the shadows. But would she have the courage to lead her children into that hell? Amidst the uncertainty, another shudder gripped the door, and she knew they had to make a choice: stay hidden or break the grip of the darkness. But what awaited them in the open? In that moment of clutching fear, a chilling laugh echoed through the small restroom, and Emma understood this wasn't just a survival story. It was about what they might become. Could they all make it out alive? Or would the shadows claim them next? The rattling intensified, relentless and mocking. Emma felt the panic clawing at her chest, each tremor urging her to scream, to hide, to run. She gripped her children tighter, desperately wishing to shield them. The flickering bulb cast elongated shadows on the walls, an endless dance of darkness teasing her from every corner. "Mom," Lucy said, her small voice barely a whisper, yet it echoed against the oppressive silence. "What's out there?" "Nothing," Emma replied, though the lie tasted bitter. She was trapped in the lie of her own voice, hoping it would drown out the gnawing dread intertwining with her thoughts. "We're safe here. Just wait." But the truth gnawed at her, sharper than any shadow. The thing outside knew they were in here. It sensed their fear and thrived on it. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of hisses and unintelligible murmurs. It was a sinister choir, each voice pulling at the edges of her sanity. Join us forever." The words wormed their way into her brain, planting the seeds of despair. What could they become if they let the shadows in? Imagining it sent a chill through her spine. With each shake, the door felt weaker, as if it would surrender at any moment. What if their sanctuary became a tomb? Emma's heart thundered, each beat a countdown to inevitability. "Mom, what if they break in?" Jake's voice trembled, his wide eyes brimming with tears. "We won't let them." Emma shot back, searching for a resolve she barely felt. The chill of reality slithered up her arms. Surrounding them was a darkness that could swallow them whole, and she knew it wasn't an ordinary fear. This was primal, a fear that twisted in the pit of her stomach like a living thing. A sudden, loud crash echoed from just outside the restroom, followed by a guttural moan that seeped through the cracks of their fragile refuge. "Let us in." The voice transformed, became a low rumble that sent shockwaves of terror through her. It was no longer the patrons in the diner but something far worse, something human yet utterly stripped of humanity. "Mom!" Lucy clung to her, fingernails digging into Emma's arm. Emma shot a glance at the mirror over the sink. She didn't recognize the woman staring back, eyes wild, face pale. She felt a compelling urge to cry, but she wouldn't, not in front of her children. They needed her strong. "Whatever happens, we stay together," Emma whispered fiercely. "We don't separate. No matter what." A series of rhythmic thuds battered against the door, a challenge laced within each sound. They were testing it, her resolve. She could hear the whispers shift, changing over into muffled laughter, ecstatic and terrifying. "Refuse," the chorus hissed. "Face the truth. Join them, join us." With desperation, Emma grasped the doorknob. Could she really open it? What lay beyond was masked in layers of darkness, but there had to be something. Would it save them, or end it all? Think, Emma. What's the difference between facing fear and becoming part of it? Before she could answer her own question, the flimsy door rattled again, this time more violently. A surge of swollen shadows pressed against it as if trying to breathe into their confined space. "I want to let you take my kids," Emma yelled, surprise filling her own chest with strength. Yet deep down, doubt quaked. Was this truly a battle of wills? Or were they already too far gone? A loud splintering crack echoed, sending a jolt through Emma's body. The door creaked ominously, vulnerability flooding the air. She had to make a choice. Fight the darkness surrounding them or surrender her fate to its insatiable grasp. The voices outside warped into a chorus of rapture, urging her towards acceptance. Could they really break free? Or had they already lost the fight? With breathless anticipation, the door began to splinter more forcefully, the shadows clawing for entry. Emma steeled herself. "On 3, we push," she urged her children, fighting to keep the tremor from her own voice. 1, 2. But just as she reached 3, a scream wrenched from her lips, wordless and primal, as the door lurched forward. Splintering wide open to reveal the depths of the waiting darkness, and what slithered forth sent ice through everything she knew. The darkness poured in, snaking around Emma's legs, cold and thick as fog. With a guttural scream, she lunged back, pulling her children with her. The shadows writhed, twisting into grotesque shapes that danced on the restroom walls. Emma's heart raced, each thud echoing in her ears like an alarm bell. "Close your eyes," she shouted, urgency oozing from her every word. But Lucy's eyes were wide, refusing to shut against the horror unfolding. She clamped her hands over her ears, but the whispers still seeped through, worming into her mind like poison. Join us forever." Emma glanced back at the door, but it hung open, revealing nothing except a swirling mass of dark, like an abyss waiting to swallow them whole. She could feel something in that darkness, something alive and eager. "Mom, what is that?" Jake whimpered, his tiny frame trembling against her side. "I don't know," she admitted, terror choking her voice. A figure stepped from the depths, moving with an eerie grace. It was a silhouette, human yet grotesque, limbs unnaturally long. Emma screamed again, a sound of pure panic, and instinctively backed away. The figure paused, tilting its head, as if it found their fear both fascinating and delicious. "Let us in." Its voice distorted, layers of noise wrapping around each word, like chains being forged in hell. "Run," Emma decided in that heartbeat of clarity. She gripped her children, hoisting Lucy into her arms as she bolted for the far side of the restroom. The figure didn't follow, but its whispers echoed louder, mocking her escape. "Come play with us forever." The whispering filled the cramped space, pressing against Emma's skull, squeezing. She felt a dizzying flush of despair. Was there no escape? What if they were trapped in this cycle of horror forever? She glanced around for a weapon. There was nothing. A flimsy sink, a cracked mirror, a flickering bulb that cast dancing shadows. "Mom!" Jake cried, pulling on her shirt. "Where do we go?" Emma spun, desperation clawing at her. "To the window," she ordered, pointing at the tiny pane of glass above the sink. It was a tight fit, and by no means would it guarantee safety. But staying here wasn't an option. They had to try. "Help me, Jake," Emma urged as they stumbled toward it. The whispers swelled behind them, a dark, rolling tide. "Help us, we are alone." Emma's breath quickened as she reached the window and forced it open. It squeaked in protest, a shrill note against the symphony of suffering that surrounded them. "Okay, Lucy, you first," Emma urged, heart racing. She set Lucy down and hoisted her up toward the aperture. If only the dark shadows held no reach. As Lucy's small body squeezed through, the sinister laughter echoed again. It sounded closer. Emma felt a cold sweat break out on her forehead. "Jake, now," she ordered, panic shooting into every corner of her voice. Just as she turned to lift him, a gust of stale wind blasted through the door, swirling shadows that grasped at her like anguished hands. Join us, Jake's eyes widened in terror. Emma yanked him toward the window, but he hesitated, taking a step back toward the dark. "Mom. I think. No. We don't think. We run." The cold grip of fear tugged at her, wrapping around her heart like a vice, but she couldn't let it in. With one last push, she shoved Jake toward the window as a scream erupted from the darkness. It felt visceral, like the very essence of hell spilling through. They were so close. Suddenly, the door shattered, shards flying in a whirlwind of chaos. Black limbs, twisting and writhing, poured in and grasped at her. The darkness fought against her, pulling her backwards. "Mom!" Jake shouted, panic-infused. "No!" Emma's voice rose into a roar, a desperate countermeasure against the encroaching horror. With all her strength, she lunged forward, practically throwing herself against the window with Jake in tow, but just as the world beyond shimmered with the hint of escape, she felt a cold hand latch onto her ankle, dragging her down. "Join us!" The shadows surged, consuming everything. Emma's scream blanketed the chaos, a final plea eclipsed by the abyss. In that final moment, she realized, what if there was no escaping this? What if this was the beginning of something new, hidden in the dark they had always feared? As she clung desperately to Jake, the darkness swallowed them whole, and in its stifling grasp, whispered promises of forever echoed out into the void what lay beyond the darkness. What truth waited to be uncovered? The world within the darkness twisted, a suffocating blanket of despair. The voices grew, a cacophony of laughter and tears, echoing through an infinity of torment. Emma squeezed her eyes shut, feeling the pull of shadows entwined around her limbs, urging her to surrender to their depths. "Mom." Jake's voice cut through the chaos, trembling with fear. She opened her eyes, and for a moment, she seemed to drift in a void, weightless and empty. The darkness shimmered like a starless night, an endless pit that promised both freedom and doom. "Hold on to me, Jake," she shouted, desperately trying to pull him close. She felt his hand slip through her fingers as more shadows lashed out from the abyss, desperate and hungry to swallow them forever. "Don't let go." Emma felt her voice splintering, echoing through the cavern of darkness. She gripped at Jake, feeling him tugged away, as if the shadows wanted to tear their bond apart. Then, like a swift punch to the gut, Emma felt a light within the crush of darkness. It flickered for a brief instant, a glow, warm and inviting. But shadows clung stubbornly to her. Could she grasp the fading light? "Mom, it's so cold," Jake gasped, shivering. "No. I'm here. Emma screamed, pulling with all her might, but the shadows lurked, hungry creatures pulling at her ankles, whispering promises of oblivion. Through the isolation, a flicker of determination ignited within her. Focus, Emma. You can't let them win. With sheer force, she propelled herself towards the light, yanking on Jake to rise alongside her. The shadows screeched, outrage ringing through the very air around them. Clawing hands raked against her skin, leaving trails of icy fire. Stay with me, Jake. His small, shaking form surged forward as they stumbled together toward the warmth. The air shifted, a hint of shelter pushing against the black mass. And there it was, the light. An opening, a portal, a shimmering promise of escape. Mom, I can't. Jake's voice cracked, his little body faltering. Hurry. Emma urged. We can't stop now. She felt the tendrils of darkness curling around her shoulders, squeezing tight, as if the shadows were both predator and prey. Between the cold hands and the oppressive weight hovering over them, the light called to her, a beacon against despair. With a final surge of strength, she flung Jake forward. You go. I'll follow. Mom. Go. The word fell like a hammer, a final note in this desperate symphony of fear. He dove into the light, and for a split second, Emma giggled at freedom within her grasp, but dread clawed at her heart as the shadows lunged, pulling her away from the light. Join us. Terror gripped her, but her resolve ignited. She propelled herself toward the light just as a wave of shadow closed around her. With a defiant shout, she pushed against the pull, both fear and fury mingling in her spirit. Never. She roared, fighting against the encroaching dark. Then the world erupted. She was tossed as if moved by an invisible force. A burst of blinding light seared through the darkness, exploding the shadows away, a crack in their mortal hold. And suddenly, she was through. Emma gasped, finding herself sprawled on the bathroom floor, disoriented but free. Shards of light danced around her, illuminating the cramped space in chaotic flashes. Jake! She shouted, reaching for him, panicked. But the space was empty. Lucy! She called out, her voice trembling. Silence hung thick around her. Did they escape? Then came the laughter. Not the laughter of children. No, this was hollow and twisted, echoing from the bathroom mirror. As she glanced up, the reflection showed her face, but it shimmered, shimmering with shadows that warped her image beyond recognition, and in that moment, she realized it wasn't over. What had followed them through the light? What darkness still lurked in the corners of their world? She felt the cold grip of dread wrap around her again. Emma's heart raced, fear clawed up her spine like ice. What awaited her next? Emma's breath came in sharp gasps as she stumbled from the cramped space of the restroom, shaking off the remnants of the darkness that had chased them. She blinked against the stinging fluorescent lights, searching for any sign of her children. Lucy! She cried, desperation clawing at her throat. The restaurant felt foreign, its ambience filled with sounds and chatter that had once been soothing. Now it resembled a sinister stage, every laugh ricocheted off the walls like daggers. Jake! A knot twisted in her stomach as silence responded. The familiar warmth of their presence was absent, replaced by an echoing void that tugged at her sanity. Fear turned her surroundings surreal. Tables that had seemed so mundane now felt threatening, the patrons' faces felt hollow, seemingly watching her with pity, the diner transforming into a grotesque playground for shadows. She locked her eyes onto the mirror above the sinks, catching fleeting flashes of her own reflection, distorted and wild-eyed. Get a grip, Emma, she whispered to herself, anchoring down the spiraling apprehension. She wouldn't let the darkness win. Determination bubbled inside her, she had battled pure terror and emerged on the other side. Yet, a pang of guilt pulsed steadily in her chest. Where are my kids? Her heart raced, each thud sinking with the dampening weight of despair. Join us, the voice no, the chorus whispered through every crevice in the building. Shadows crept around her ankles and pooled at her feet, begging for recognition, for acknowledgement. Emma shook her head violently, willing away the haunting words. She had to find Lucy and Jake somewhere out there. They were still fighting, just like she was. With renewed ferocity, she pushed past the booths, glancing over each table, desperate to find familiar faces among the strangers. Then she heard a flicker of laughter. Wild laughter, not of joy, but an eerie taunt. It echoed from the back of the diner, a place shrouded in darkness. Emma's instincts flared. She had to go. Summoning every ounce of courage, she moved toward the back of the diner, where an unfamiliar door stood. It felt wrong, so clearly inviting, like hair standing on end. Gripping the handle, she hesitated for just a moment. Go or stay. A voice bubbled up, dark and twisted. You'll find what you're looking for, it echoed in her brain. Shut up. She shouted, yanking the door open as if to mock the voice that haunted her. The room beyond was a stark contrast. While the diner had been fluorescent and overbearing, this space fell into complete darkness. A tangible heaviness settled around her, and for a fleeting moment, she pondered turning back. But then she thought of Lucy's wide eyes, the rush of air on Jake's small face as he had been thrown toward escape, the urge to protect them stronger than her own fear. Guys! She called out, her voice echoing in the stillness. It's me. Mom. A flicker of something emerged within the deep shadows' tiny figures. Her heart seized agonizingly as light glinted off their expressions. This time, it was her children, yet their faces bore the unmistakable signs of fear. Mommy, we're scared. Lucy's voice broke through the oppressive quiet, cutting through Emma's heart like a knife. Stay together, baby. We're almost out of here. Emma urged, adrenaline surging. She reached out, pulling them closer, desperately holding on to their warmth, a tether in the darkness. The whispers intensified, winding around them, growing louder, clawing at Emma's resolve. Join us forever, no. We don't want to be part of you. Emma shouted defiantly. Just then, shadows thickened, their envy of their light radiating around them. The walls seemed to pulse as if synchronizing with the fever of the whispered threat. Join us, be whole again, Mom, Jake whimpered, trembling just beneath her arm. Hold on, my loves. We can beat it, focus on the light, remember. Emma steeled herself, squeezing her children closer. They had to run, but her determination wavered against the relentless tide of darkness demanding their submission. Suddenly, a surge of primal instinct thrummed in Emma's chest. Not today. With surprising strength, she swung the door wide open, leading her children back into the light of the diner, not hesitating for a second. The glow from the diner felt like salvation as they tumbled back into the bright chaos. The patrons had changed, they now wore masks of the shadows. Find the way out. Emma yelled, dragging her kids through the disorder, adrenaline coursing through her veins, but as they made their way to the door she had last seen the exit, the windows shattered, allowing the shadows to flood through, seeking to reclaim what they believed was theirs. Out! We have to get out now. Emma's voice roared as she propelled through the open door, dragging her children behind her. The street outside was drenched in rain, transforming the pavement into a hellish pool reflecting the erratic lights of the diner. She glanced back, wrestling the fear swelling inside her. It's not over. She thought. But neither are we. Together, they sprinted down the drenched street, pain biting through their muscles, adrenaline keeping them moving. Their laughter was a distant echo behind them, a reminder that the shadows lingered just beyond the veil. But in this chase, Emma felt renewed power surge through her, fueled by love, resolve, and courage. She would fight for her children, face whatever darkness wanted to claim them. Just keep running. We're almost home. As they disappeared into the night, Emma swore she could hear the whispers grow fainter, almost lost against the thrumming city. They would reclaim their life, one step at a time, and maybe, just maybe, at the dawn of a new day, they would face the darkness that lurked within Maplewood hands. But for now, they were free. The end was not a beginning, freedom would come with countless fights ahead, a promise that they would not succumb, because together, they were unstoppable. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to fuel the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.